there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we have a really fun technique to do again, and I'm going to start off with a piece of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch 80 pound Nina Solar White cardstock. Now I'm just going to cut off about 1.5 to 2 inches off each corner here, and so you'll kind of see how I just flip it over, and I am just estimating at this point. And I kind of thought at this point it looked like a little bit of a funny shape, but it does fit there nicely. You can see this is the piece that I haven't cut, so I feel pretty happy with how it's at. Now what we're going to do is we are going to coat this in some VersaMark, which is just a sticky embossing ink, and then I'm going to use some Ranger Gold embossing powder, and I'm going to coat it all, then melt it just like normal, just like you normally would with embossing powder. Except for I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times. I want there to be a really thick layer of embossing powder. And when I say thick, the thicker the better. So you can do it a couple of ways. You can do the whole thing at once. Or if you find it easier, you can kind of just do what I did here and just do half of it at once. And then once you go back and do the other half, it kind of all melts into each other. So don't worry about there being a line or, somewhere that you can see where you started or finished embossing the last bit. So I just did a mixture of both. Sometimes I did a little bit and sometimes I coated the whole thing. It doesn't really matter, and I can just use some tweezers to kind of hold it in place if I end up doing the whole panel. So with this technique, almost the more times you emboss it, the better. Or the thicker embossing powder that you put on, the better. And the thicker layer you end up with, the better your results will be. So I think I ended up doing 4 layers overall. Now I have obviously sped this up a little bit, and this was kind of the part that took me the most time. I'm waiting till it was completely cool, and that is my nice thick embossed panel. I've chosen a stamp set where the stamps that I'm going to use, which is those 2 flowers, have some fine lines and they're just an outline image. Now you can use kind of bold filled in images, however I definitely find that the lines and the outside lines of the images that I've chosen work the best. So I've put these on a couple of stamp blocks, and I'm just going to ink them up with some VersaMark ink to begin with, and this kind of protects my stamp. So I'm just inking them up, and then I'm going to have them sitting nearby ready because we are going to press these in to the hot embossing powder. So all I do is I heat up a little patch with my heat gun, and you do have to be kind of quick about it. So I'm right-handed, I'm using my left hand here to hold the heat gun, and in my right hand I have the stamp ready to go. You have a very short couple of seconds to pop the stamp into the hot embossing powder, or should I say the melted embossing powder, and then you just pop your stamp in and press down really firmly. Now the best thing to kind of do is wait a good 5 to 10 seconds, and that way your embossing powder has cooled enough that when you remove your stamp there is a nice crisp and clean image left behind in the now cooled embossing powder. So you can see that I've got 1 flower there, then I'm going to move on, and just at the very tip there I'm going to do the same thing and pop the leaf image in there. Now you do have to be a little bit careful when you are heating up the embossing powder next to an image that you have already impressed in there, because you don't want to re-melt the embossing powder that you've already created the image in, if that makes sense. So if you melt it again, the image will fade away and kind of melt back into just being flat. So that's what you don't want to happen. So I just heat up one by one because I found that's the easiest way to do it, because by the time I get to doing a second image, the embossing powder has cooled too much and I can't get a good impression. So I just do 1 spot at a time, and I make sure, just like this design, that there's a little bit of space in between each one of the images. So this second flower here is the next one down, and you can see that it creates a really nice deep image. And I guess essentially what you are doing is just pushing the liquid embossing powder to the side. You're just smushing in the stamp into the embossing powder, and so it all kind of moves to the side. So nothing complicated about it, but you do have to be kind of quick, and you can see that I just do 1 bit at a time. So I have finished my panel here. This is going to be kind of the main center panel for my card, and you can see it's got some really nice deep embossing there. So this was so much fun. You could do this obviously with any embossing color. I guess clear or white might be a little bit tricky to kind of show up. I definitely found that the silvers and golds and coppers worked really well for me. And then just while I've got this out, I'm also going to create a few more strips just out of a scrap piece of cardstock. I just quickly ran some VersaMark sticky ink down the side and then added the same gold embossing powder, and that's just so that everything matches. Now this is a super simple card today, and I'm really enjoying kind of doing these at the moment and just having fun trying out techniques that are new to me, not necessarily new altogether, but new to me. So with this little piece that I embossed here, I'm just cutting some really thin strips, just as many as I kind of can. I think I end up getting 4 or 5 or 6 of them maybe, and I'll use those in just a second. So everything coordinates at the moment. They don't have any sticky adhesive on the back of them at the moment. They're just pieces of cardstock. Then I have my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base here, and this is a Nina Solar White 110 pound card base. And I've got my panel right down the middle, and you can see that it fits nicely. And then all I'm going to do to finish off this card is I have a stamp set here, and this is the Altenew Sentiment Strips 2. And this was a stamp set that I invested in recently, so you're going to be seeing this popping up a lot in the next few cards. Quite a few cards. I must admit, you guys know that I love to get really good use out of my stamp sets and things, so yeah, I liked the sentiments that were in this one, so I invested in this little stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it really nice and plainly in some VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then to finish this off, I'm so simply going to add some of these little strips and just add them random widths apart. So I'm going to pop 2 up here, and I'm just going to stick them down using some Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside that glue bottle there. The glue bottle is from AliExpress, but as I said, it's the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish that's inside there. And if you're having trouble getting the glue inside of that bottle, I have a video on my channel to show you exactly how to do it. It's a super short little video, and it's really easy. Once you have seen it and once you know how, it's a really easy process. So as I said, all I'm doing is adding some really simple gold strips to this, and this is my card complete for today. I hope these videos recently have been inspiring you to give this a go. If you would like to show me your projects or your results when you tried some of these techniques, my Facebook page is a really good place to do that, and I will leave a link to that down in the description box below. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again. Bye.